really valuable. So it's really wonderful to have everyone here in person. I'm glad that we have people joining us. I think we're still expecting Jane Hartline and Liza Jane, both of whom had other commitments, but are going to try to be here. So to get started, I'll call the meeting to order, and I'd like to hear from everybody, like we normally do. Mark Stern, why don't you start?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see everybody in person and meet some people for the first time. It's great. We've been enjoying spring. Jenny and I spent some time camping along the John Day River out at Cottonwood State Park. That was a fun part of the world. And from there, we drove down to Malheur and camped out with about 30 other people who were all knew each other through various walks of life and various age groups from 12 to 80, and did some birding out here and poked around out there. And then we spent a few days camping along the Metolius River and participating in the East Cascade Bird Alliance Woodpecker Festival for a few days. We spent a day with a fellow named Tom Crabtree, who's a big Oregon birder, learning to identify Epidemax flycatchers, which I would say is a work in progress. So it was a good time, and we didn't get rained on too much, so we kind of dodged the rain, and that was great.
You're always doing something cool, Mark. That's great.
Everybody here, it's an outdoor crowd here.
Marat, man, I love your hair and your dress.
Hold on, humble.
It's a lot
Takes
more
a lot of
impressive.
It takes a lot of work. I've been kind of housebound this winter, recovering from my various new joint replacements. And so I've been very anxious to get out. We went camping on the Metolius. It's just beautiful. Bitterbrush is in full bloom. Subtle Lake had tons of calypso orchids, and it's just been fun to see everything blooming. And we were just talking about all the flowers on the pass, even in the burned areas. There's beargrass and lupinus stuff coming up. So just looking forward to getting out more this summer, and I've been writing a lot for the Nugget, wrote some stuff on beavers. And so, yeah, that's been fun too. So just kind of trying to keep busy and enjoy the summer.
I noticed that bitterbrush as well. It seems like way more than usual.
It's kind of a wild year for plants, I think. There's almost like a super bloom going on in a lot of places for various things.
It's between Klamath and the turnoff to Oak Ridge. It is solid blooming bitterbrush.
Really?
Solid.
Wow,
It's really cool.
that's cool.
Tristy.
Carl, I also am enjoying spring, watching the wildflowers starting to bloom in my yard. But I've also been traveling a lot. I was in New Mexico last week in Santa Fe and Taos. Beautiful, very different, but beautiful landscape. High desert, and just a canyon, and just the pueblos and everything. Just kind of took that in, and I'm here for a week or so, and then I'm off to Montana, to Bozeman, living in a ranch for a week. That should be fun. So have a packed summer coming up.
That's great.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Mauricio, what's happening with you?
Well, thank you, Carl, and all of those watching at home. Doesn't it feel like a talk a little bit?
It does now.
Brought to you by the Beaver Court. No, it's been great. It's been great. This last weekend, which is probably as far as my memory may be reliable because of all the things that are happening. This is the season in which we get to do all kinds of things outdoors. And this last weekend, I was part of the great outdoor experience at Hack Lake with I Am Hooked and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Northwest Family Vacation Program that I helped run. And we hosted, once again, hundreds of families from the city learning to fish for the first time and doing all kinds of like natural observation, natural belonging activities. It has been great. Saturday was fabulous. Sunday was a little rainy, but it was great. I was just doing games with kids, all about learning about pollinators and learning about the magical feats of insects and all kinds of stuff, which I very much enjoy doing. And that's my
I'm
report.
giving you the hook.
Thank you, Carl. Sorry. We're gonna fix that in post, everybody.
Jenna.
Well,
Oh, there's Liza Jane.
I think the camera, we have to wave that. Let's see. So my youngest stepchild graduated Saturday, so
Oh,
that's a
boy,
big
that's a
high
big
school.
deal.
So that's a big deal. It's exciting. We went on a really great and epically longer than we thought gravel ride in the Cascade Siskiyou National Monument last weekend. Gravel bike ride, and yeah, just plugging away. Big June plans we have lower road permits to float the river.
What high school?
South Medford.
South Memphis, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
One of the Klamath rivals.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep, indeed.
Jim, how are you doing?
Pretty good. No, for me, April and May are usually filled with bird dog field trials. But this year, the American Kennel Club had the National Pointing Dog Championship at Madras. So for 2 weeks, I was riding, judging, and then, or marshaling. I was on horseback for 14 days straight. I calculated the amount of mileage that I rode, and it was enough to ride to Coos Bay and back.
Wow.
But it was fun, but it also occupied a tremendous amount of spring. So I'm trying to get my fishing done and a few other things and trying to catch up on those spring activities, but been busy.
This is a busy time of year.
We saw some awfully good bird dogs though, from all over the United States, and that was very impressive.
Is this upland? All
Yeah, no, it's all uplands. They're, short hairs, wire hairs, Brittany's, setters, pointers, Vizslas, Weimaraners. They're all, competing together.
No labradoodles?
No lab. I don't think a pointing lab is even allowed in, but certainly not the crossbreeds. No, not with American. It was fun.
Reva, what's up with you?
Yeah. So let's see, last weekend I checked out the Umpqua, the North Umpqua.
Nice.
It's kind of my first time going there, and the water is so blue. It's so gorgeous. We went hiking and we checked out some waterfalls. And we had a good time. Went camping, got bit by a bunch of mosquitoes. And, yeah, that was great. And a few weeks before that, I got to go check out the Ochocos for work and saw some great beaver restoration, beaver dam analog projects by the Forest Service in the Ochoco National Forest. So I had
What watershed?
Crooked River.
Was it with the
Yeah.
river?
Yeah. Yeah, so I saw some great projects on the ground.
So that was on Forest Service land.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah, they talked to us about their, fire management, watershed management. We saw it all. It was a good tour. Nice to meet those folks. And then it was a great trip. On the way back, I did get a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. And I had just dislocated my shoulder. So I was like, uh-oh, no phone service. And then these great people stopped and helped me out.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Nice people out there. Yeah, it was a good trip.
That's great. Liza Jane, sorry you couldn't join us, but glad you could join us virtually.
Thank you. I am so sad. I was, I think, the first one that said, yes, I want to come to Salem. And yes, I ordered my lunch. And oh my God, I'm so excited because you look you're very little people today. Very little. But I couldn't make it. So I'm glad. I can't believe I'm saying I'm thankful for my computer and virtual connection, but I am. Lately, living in a place that has a short growing season, when it starts to happen, it is whip and spur time and just been super busy trying to keep up with everything. It's all good. It's just a lot at once. And for fun, probably getting into the mushrooms again, the morel mushrooms, I should say.
Clarification.
Yeah, this is public record. But yeah, last year they didn't happen, and this year they're abundant. So my freeze dryer's going, and it's always just fun to get out and look at everything, because you're just focused on kind of right around you and getting lost and looking for more. So that's been kind of it, I think.
Yeah, that is the same experience in Klamath with that short growing season. You just got to jump on it fast, and it all happens at once. The morels are going off. I'm planting wild millet. I'm planting buckwheat. I'm planting garden. It's crazy. It all happens, and you feel like you're missing it if you don't get it
Yes.
all done in a few days.
I did get my greenhouse in, and if any of you are hungry, I've planted enough for Oregon, I'm pretty sure. Let me know.
Well, great. Thanks for joining us, Liza Jane.
Thank you.
I think the other, Kelly is traveling and may be able to join us at some point, and Jane is down looking at some properties with the Southern Oregon Land Trust. And I'll just point out to the group here, I got a great picture of her standing on the bridge that we bought for the Southern Oregon Land Trust at Pompadour Butte Reserve. So she's very proud of that bridge, and they're very happy with the bridge. And we can say we actually got something on the ground that's very concrete. So it was nice to see that.
Nice work.
So hopefully Jane will join us. All right, well, great to hear from everybody. And again, really unique and different to have everybody right here. Our next agenda item, as usual, is to review and approve the minutes. You have that slide.
Up there.
Anyone willing to we approve those minutes?
Happy to go. I move to approve the May 7th, 2024 meeting minutes with the continued authority to correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation.
We have a second?
Here, I'll second
All in favor? All right, I can actually see people's hand. I usually just go, yeah, okay, everybody's okay. All right, great, that passed. Now I think it's time, did you want to acknowledge the people in the meeting?
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of people who've joined today. Let's see. Looks like we have Aubrey Cloud, Dennis White, Elena Leininger, who's going to be presenting later, James Frazier, Ashley Kahlberg, she's ODFW staff from Contracts. Thanks for joining. Mike Toady, Oregon Hunters Association, Representative Wright, Serena Jepson from the Xerxes Society, Scott Marion, ODFW staff, and we have Tim Gresseth from Oregon Wildlife Foundation. Thanks everyone for joining today. Appreciate it.
Representative White, we see you're here and are very pleased to have you, and wondering if you had any comments you wanted to make or what your interest might be.
Well, hello. It's always good to view the actions of the ODFW in a variety of ways, always supportive and just here to learn. So carry on. Thank you for allowing me to attend.
Well, we really welcome you being here and thank you for taking the time to attend. Actually, this is a very important meeting and we've got some really significant actions to take. And so thank you for joining us. All right, so with that important action we have, as you all know, we had a hiatus of funding because of some uncertainty due to the legislative sessions and what funding was or was not going to be available. We decided to take a hiatus for our RFPs, and we did not waste that time as we went through a very successful process of re-examining where we are, where we're headed, and where we might go. And I was very happy with that outcome and really appreciated everybody's efforts. However, that has left us with nearly a year since we've really gotten projects on the ground. So we've had our most recent RFP. We've gone through the whole process. We've ranked them. Reva did a phenomenal job of putting that information together in a very short time. I think you all got the lists. And she put it together in a really nice, easy to review format, and really appreciated her doing that. And so we're here today to talk about that and how the rankings came out. And Reva, you want to talk a little bit about the process and what we ended up with? Oh, wait a minute. We have another celebrity with us here. Jane Hartline has joined us. Hey, Jane. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Sorry I was late. We've had a pretty packed schedule today, so I came when I could.
Jane, I told everybody about you standing on the bridge.
Uh-huh. Right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Jane. We appreciate you being here.
Great.
So Reva, you want to go ahead and give a little presentation?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what I was going to share today is, first I was going to compare our, after a few announcements, I'm going to compare the 84 project proposals that we received within those 21 top ranking projects and see how the distribution compares. And so I'll get into that in just a second, but first off, just a few program announcements. This last week, our OCRF Communication Strategy RFP went out, thanks to Tim Gresseth, who's online. Thank you, Tim. And so he sent that out. We've already had a lot of interest garnered already. Folks are interested to put in a request, a quote for communications planning for OCRF. So that's exciting, and that RFP will close on July 24th. So that's in progress. And then this is more of an announcement for those online. The advisory committee is going to be going on a tour tomorrow in Portland. And if anybody would like to join on the tour, we're going to be meeting at Whitaker Ponds at 10 a.m. So members of the public who join the tour, please provide your own lunch and transportation. All right, so in this round, spring 2024, we got 84 project proposals. It's the most we've ever had in a round. This is 15 more than our round 6. There was 4.7 million total requested funds, and 3.9 million of those were drought projects. And the average request was around 57,000. So you can see the average project request was driven up because we increased our project cap for those drought projects. And then the group already identified we would spend about $1 million in this round. The review of projects was conducted by ODFW staff. The technical review team has finished their reviews, and the level 2 reviews by the OCRF advisory committee. The review process is now complete, so I'll be going over the project scores and rankings with the group, and everyone should have a project rank and score sheet to follow along with. And for those online, that was posted to the meeting page, so feel free to bring that up. And so please remember, for those online, we have 2 buckets for this funding cycle. The drought package and the non-drought funds or base program funds.
I
And so-
think we should explain what our funding was earmarked to some degree. We have some flexibility with our non-drought funds. That basically means it's flexible funds. We could spend it where we wanted. The drought funding that we received through the legislature, there was a definite earmark that be associated with drought, relieving drought effects on wildlife and habitat in Oregon. And so that's what that drought funding is about.
Exactly, yep. So if the project addresses any aspects of drought, wildfire, aquatic habitat resilience, it could be funded by that drought package. So those are our two buckets that we're looking at. And so for the 84 total project proposals, this is how it played out between drought and non-drought. We had about 70% were drought projects and 29% were not addressing an aspect of drought. And then if we compare that to the 21 top ranked projects from this round, the distribution is very similar. About 33% non-drought, 67% were drought. And so moving into the conservation recreation classification, the project applicants did self-identify their project on a spectrum of between conservation to recreation. And those pure conservation projects, you can see were about a quarter of them in the full project proposals, and an even mix of at the intersection between conservation and recreation is also about a quarter. And then not surprisingly, only 4% were self-identified as pure recreation. Now we can compare to the 21 top ranking projects. And you can see the distribution is very similar. I'll just go back real quick and forth so you can see that. But the a pure conservation slice of the pie in blue here, that's too small for you to see, is this one right here. And that has grown a little bit. And then the even mix of conservation versus recreation projects in gray shrunk a little bit. And the rest of them pretty much stay the same. So the orange is our conservation with a recreation element. And yellow is recreation with a conservation element. And then there's one project that is pure recreation project.
I agree, but these are by number of applications, not by dollar, correct?
Yes, number of applications, number of projects. Correct.
That would be an interesting, another way to look at that.
That's true.
But that, Reva put this together on her own, and I really appreciated that comparison to see if we were getting way off, if it's like, well, wait a minute, we're just funding nothing but these at the expense of the others. But as those pie charts show, we're pretty close to what the applications represented. So.
Exactly, yep. And then this last thing is the geography or ecoregion, which is always really interesting to look at. And you can see for all the project proposals that came in for the 84 projects, this is what the distribution was. The column on the left, sorry, it's kind of small, but these are the ecoregion, so Coast Range, near shore, Klamath Mountains. And then across is the number of applicants. So that's how you can read these numbers here. And you can see the regions that have less coverage in applications are Columbia Plateau, Klamath Mountains, Northern Basin and Range, and near shore. And then Willamette Valley has the most representation as usual. And then also something to note for this graph is that the applicants, they may have primary ecoregions, but this is also showing projects that identify multiple ecoregions.
Reva, I have a question here.
Yes.
Would it be possible to do a similar graph for the projects that are actually awarded, once we decide on that, just to
Yeah.
have a better understanding for us as a committee
Definitely.
where that impact is. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's gonna look pretty similar to this one here for the
Okay.
21 projects, but I'll update it once we get the
Perfect.
actual projects. So you can see this is very similar to the graph we just looked at. I'll just go back real quick and forward, so you can see that that looks very similar. So we're having a very similar distribution. And we have good geographical representation in the top 21 projects, the way it came out. So Willamette Valley still has the most here with 11. The near shore and Columbia Plateau and Northern Basin and Range are still represented, even though we didn't get as many applications in for those regions. All right. Any questions about these summary statistics?
Does this also correlate to population density in these regions, you think?
Willamette Valley is the most population dense region of Oregon, so, yeah, there's probably a correlation there. Northern Basin Range is less populated.
I think we're holding our own though.
Per capita.
As a relative number.
There you go.
Reva, representative of the right, has a question.
His hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. I noticed the Coast Range has 6 proposals that were submitted and hopefully agreed to. I wonder, you don't have to answer this now, but I wonder what those projects were. I'd be very interested in learning about them. Thank you.
Yes, we can get that information to you and we can provide you with the information of who applied and also ultimately with what we were able to fund. And I think one of the takeaways is, given our level of funding, we're only able to scratch the surface of what we could be doing in those areas. As you saw, we're at a nearly 5-to-1 in terms of what were requested and what we're able to fund. So you can see that with the next slide, we had 21 applications from the Coast Range and we're only able to fund 6.
Yeah, and I would just add that the meeting materials online should show, I'll be going over the project score and rank, but it has the ecoregion there as well. You could see all the projects that were that applied that were in the Coast Range.
We'll get that information to you directly though, Representative.
All right. So are we ready to move on to some of the project score and rankings?
Yep.
All right. So if everyone can pull up their project score ranking sheet, I'm going to be starting with the drought package rankings. So for the drought fund bucket. And if you look at this sheet on the far left-hand column is project number, and then you have project title, lead organization. We also have the geography, ecoregion here as well. And project classification, so are they identified between conservation to recreation spectrum? The requested funds. And then on the far right-hand column, you can see raw score and rank sum. So the best possible rank sum is a 2, and the highest raw score possible is 150 points.
Just so for those that are listening, to clarify how we have done that. We all score these. What we learned early on is that some people gave higher scores than others, and the way to address that and to not skew the results was just, we would use the numbers of the scores that any individual scorer gave just to give a rank. So you had your number 1 project, your number 2 project, your number 3, your number 4, rather than use the numbers, which for someone like myself who gave really high grades to everybody, it would skew projects towards me. And so the fairer way was to rank them and then add those ranks. So if you look at the top 2 projects, they both got a 2. that meant that the scorer ranked it as both scorers ranked it as their number one project. So that it's just is a really, I think, an elegant way to address some disparities and still give you good quality projects. And I'm very happy with how that's worked out. But that's the difference between the raw score and the rank sum.
That's great. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, I think the rank sum is a great way to remove any unfair advantage over how projects scored and remove any of that bias.
And just
So,
for everybody's benefit, each proposal was reviewed by two people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Blindly review. We don't get to see each other's.
yes.
And I think to also clarify our process, it's become extremely valuable. We have ODF and W staff review the projects and give their opinions as well. And I think the committee takes their recommendations, but it's certainly, I've gone back and reviewed them. And it's a part of everyone's decision, but it does not dictate what ends up being the ranking. So I think that's also been a really nice addition to our process.
Yeah, and even with all this, you can still see that the raw scores and the rank sum are still pretty correlated. You can see that the highest scores still correspond to the highest ranked projects, as in the top here, the 144 and a 2. Yeah, so this first page is showing projects that ranked between a 2 to a 7. And the ones that fall above the funding line. And I'll move to the next page. So the next page shows projects that rank between a 7 to a 10. And then you can see here that if the committee were to fund up to the project 39, mainstreaming beaver-based restoration as a natural climate solution in Oregon, phase 2 at the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, that would bring our funding level up to $859,000 for the drought package funding. And then we can move to the next page and see where these projects fell out. So this is projects that ranked between a 10 to a 13. And on the following page, you can see projects that rank between a 13 to an 18. And so on. Next, I can go over the non-drought project scores and rankings. And that's going to be literally page 6. Okay. So here we have the project rankings for the non-drought package. So these were projects that didn't address an aspect of drought for Oregon, but we can fund from our base program funding. And so these were ranked separately so that the two groups didn't compete with each other. And you can see the projects that ranked at the top. And then if we fund up to 204,000, we get down to the project number 76, using GPS technology to uncover migratory stopover and overwintering locations of the at-risk western purple martin by the Klamath Bird Observatory.
It's important, I think, to point out, if you look at the raw scores of these non-drought programs, we were only able to fund, as you can see there's 3 that were number 1 for the 2 reviewers. And we had to stop at 5. Whereas we got up, I think, to 8 or maybe even 9 on the non-drought score. So there's some great projects that we're not able to fund. And that is simply because we do not have the funding to, if we're going to continue with our RFPs, we only have X number of dollars for the remaining RFPs. So it's a bit heartbreaking to not be able to fund these projects. The cutoff is not necessarily because of the quality of the project. It is because of the limitation of funding. And again, we have less of the discretionary funding. So we were only able to do $200,000 this round. I just want to make sure people understand why it's the way it is.
Thanks, Carl. And speaking of funding, I was gonna go over a quick budget update so that we just have it in our minds, what the OCRF has, what you have in the bank, and when you're thinking about funding from these two different buckets. So we have in base program funding, we have 1 million, and this is calculated removing any committed projects that were allocated funds. That leaves us with 1 million. This does not include the ELS donations for the remainder of the biennium, so the rest of this year, and through half of 2025. There's also going to be some interest that will be deposited in August. But this doesn't include that value, but there's 1,006,000 in base program, not including this current RFP either.
Let me interrupt. I don't know if you're seeing this, but we're getting comments that folks aren't able to open those ranking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so.
There's a PDF and an Excel sheet. Maybe try one or the other, or both of them. See if one of them works and one of them doesn't. Maybe if the Excel sheet doesn't work, and try the PDF.
Neither of them work, they say.
Let's see.
Neither of them work. Okay. Tiffany, do you think you could try to pop? them in
I'm
the
trying
chat?
to.
Okay, well, we'll try to work that out. We apologize for that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully we'll get you those soon so you can follow along.
Riva, do you have an approximation of what the the electronic online donations will be that are out there based on previous years?
So I don't, and the reason I didn't include it is because I wanted to give more of a conservative estimate here. Because we just don't know what it will be, but it could be 100,000.
Is that what it has been historically, like in the last year, for instance?
Historically, we've been up to 150,000 in
Yep.
Miami. Yeah. And what we're referring to is the option when you go on to buy a hunting or fishing license, you're given the option to donate to the OCRF. And fortunately for us, the Hunters and Anglers of Oregon, as they have done throughout the history of the department, have stepped up and have funded us to a significant amount of money. And we really appreciate that. It's meaningful dollars. It's really meaningful, as we'll see here. I think we'll be able, because of that, that gives us some flexibility in what we're able to do. Part of our whole effort to do a communication outreach is to maximize that funding and let people know what we are all about and give them that opportunity to donate through that avenue. Of course, that does not touch the many folks that are spending a lot of time outdoors that aren't hunting and fishing. And we need to figure out a way to allow them to participate as generously as the hunters and anglers have.
All right, and so then in our drought package, we have, not including this current RFP, 2.6 million. And that is with the remaining funds minus any current committed allocated projects and personnel costs. So if we funded, 800,000 up to $1 million for this drought package, that would bring us down to 1.6 for this round, including the RFP. And all of our ARPA, federal ARPA funds have been committed to other projects, so there's nothing in that remaining. And that's where we stand for the OCRF budget. Any questions on that? The group.
Reva, thanks for putting that together. That's really helpful for us.
And then I'll just say that right now this is where we are in our RFP timeline. We have the advisory committee recommendations today, and on June 14th, in just 10 days, we'll be taking the recommendations from the committee to the commission for final approval.
Great. Well, Reva, thank you. Again, I want to thank you so much for getting all that information out to us quickly last week. Gave all of us time to digest that a little bit before coming and set the stage for some recommendations I might make as we move forward. Mark?
Yeah, just a question, maybe you guys are going there, but in terms of the rest of this biennium, do we anticipate be in the fall and in the spring of 25,
Two more RFPs.
this biennium?
Yeah, and that'll be relevant in the future conversation we're gonna have. So Reva's given you the look at the projects. I'm opening it up to the committee just to give what do you think? Do you have any thoughts about how it all turned out? I will say that I'm going to make a proposal later on that I've talked to some about that will change this a bit, but not the existing projects that we have identified that are quote above the line. But so I'd like to hear any comments about those projects and that portfolio that we've generated above the line, the funding line. Anyone? Mark?
Well, I think as you commented, the hard part is there's a lot of good projects that didn't get funded, so you could easily fund projects 3/4 of the way down through the list and feel really good about it. But we knew that going into it. I was sort of encouraged to see the rank sum scoring and the raw scoring kind of tracked, and I could see in my own scoring of projects, it sort of actually surprisingly fit with whoever else was scoring the projects I saw. So I think at least from a process standpoint, it played out pretty well, and fortuitously, it's got a pretty good spread geographically, as well as across the conservation, drought, recreation, the graph you showed, Reva, portrayed. So other than feeling disappointed that there are some projects below the line I'd like to see funded, I thought it played out pretty well.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else with thoughts about that?
Well, this is the first time I did it, and when I initially started, I was a little overwhelmed with the criteria that we were working with and the volume of information that was provided by the applicants. But the more I worked with it, the easier it became. And but I spent an awful lot of time digesting it and then going back and making sure that I was right. Because I mean, you do feel a big burden that this is pretty important and certainly important to a lot of people. And I was very comfortable with the ratings after spending probably a good 2 weeks going back and forth. But I liked the way we did it. I liked the ability to compare the project and the rating criteria and the way it was written. It wasn't that difficult after you spent some time. And yeah, I think it worked really well. I was pleased with being able to sort of dice these projects together, because you're right. There's an awful lot of very, very good projects listed here.
Jim, that coming from our newest member, that's very gratifying to hear. We've worked hard on trying to get a good, fair process, and it's evolved over time. And now we have this new software. Did everyone find that software pretty nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That was really easy to navigate and easy to keep track of what you were doing. So I think we're just getting better and better at this. And so thank you for those comments. Anything else?
I'll also add here, Carl, that I always, every cycle, appreciate the feedback that ODF and W staff provide. Again, it's not the basis of my ranking, but it gives me so much more information to think about, especially around research and use of the data and the methodology being used and whether that's scientifically sound. Definitely not an expert on all the species being discussed in every project. So that's really helpful. So really want to acknowledge that for ODF.
Reeve, I don't know if there's an easy way to do it, but I found the same, and I would like to extend the thanks directly to the reviewers, because they're
Yeah.
busy enough. And now we're asking them to do this, and clearly many of them spent a lot of time. They didn't just kind of blow through it. So please let them know that the committee really appreciates the time and effort, and that it helped us tremendously.
Yeah.
Please communicate that with them.
Definitely, I'll pass that on. Yeah, thank you.
In fact, maybe I can author a email or something to thank them.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. So remind me to do that.
Eliza Jane's hand is up.
Liza Jane?
Oh, thank you. I wanted to also say that the fondant system again goes against my nature, but that was awesome. It was night and day difference last year to this year, and I felt like it gave me the opportunity to really, as Jim said, spend some time, read through things, soak on it. I could track what I was reading so much easier. It was just really, really good. Felt confident from that. And then if I have a question about the non-drought specific projects. Did I see that all of those were west side? There was one that the Wolverine tracking included east, but it looked like they were all.
There's one coast range, one near shore.
Yeah, to me, that's all west side of Oregon.
I'm with you, Eliza Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. Again, but what we would have to do is go look at the whole list of them, and I'm looking at the rest of them, and I'm not seeing a whole lot from the east side.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that's just the way, that's just,
The applicant.
that's the outcome, and partly because everything on the east side is drought impacted. And I think that maybe is the reason you see that distribution. That's interesting that you picked that up.
oh, I'm a
That's
little
why it's
sensitive,
having-
I think.
It's nice having committee members from across the state, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll give you my perspective. I was thrilled with the outcome in that, like yourselves, I felt like the system worked well. I felt we ranked the really good projects. I just have to mirror everything everyone said. The hard part, the heartburn was, oh my God, we are stopping way too soon. And it was really hard to do that, but it is what it is, and we can only fund what we can fund. And I hope those in the audience out there that did not get funded recognize that. Even the cutoff line was way above where you'd start saying, this is just not a good project. There were many very fundable projects that we just couldn't get to. And so I'm hearing a general idea that our list above the line is good. I've got a proposal to make that will affect the final outcome of this. But in your heads, I just kind of keep that list, that 21 that we have, as a separate thing. So I looked at all of these projects because Reva got that stuff to us so quickly, and I reviewed them all. I was very excited about the diversity, and Reva got some great graphs showing us the diversity of type, the diversity of geography. We pretty much are hitting it all, and which is great. However, I think that in some ways, we could be more strategic in how we do things and really try to move the needle on some of our projects. And as I was looking at this, something that jumped out to me, there were three particular projects that were very interrelated. And they were involving a subject that is very important to me and I think to the rest of Oregon, particularly with regard to drought. And that is the beaver-based restoration work that's going on. Temporally, it's really important because, as everyone knows, the department has been through a long process of trying to address how it's going to approach the beaver issues across the state. Adrian Averett, the staff person, has been working for a couple of years on the beaver action plan for the department. We have funded several efforts to try to streamline beaver-based restoration across the state. And we have gotten three applications that really stood out to me in the fact that they were interconnected, and if they were funded, would really move the needle on that particular process. One in particular was submitted by Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and it was funded. And in fact, it was above the line and is funded. It goes a long ways towards calibrating the BRAT, which is an assessment tool for looking at impacts of if you do introduce beavers, what happens, what's the infrastructure that's at risk. It looks at habitat in terms of what would work and what would not work. It's just a very needed tool, and they're working on fine tuning that. We had actually funded that once, but because of some personnel issues, they ended up not going forward. We did not spend that money, and this is a more refined effort with an incredible team of 22 partners, all of the luminaries of beaver-related restoration in that group. So that was funded. A second one is a restoration effort on the North Fork of the Crooked River. This is intimately tied to that other project, which was funded, where they are using the information generated to do on-the-ground work. In some ways, it's a proofing of the work that the Bonneville Environmental Foundation is going to do. And they reference throughout the applications, they're referencing each other, and it's many of the same people involved. The third project is one presented by the department, and that is an internship program that is the foundation for Pillar 1 of the Beaver Action Plan for the department. Pillar 1 is understanding that there has to be a better scientific base and understanding of beavers and distribution and habitat across the state. The means by which they're going to do that is to hire interns to go to the 6 BEAs, which is beaver something areas.
Emphasis areas.
Beaver emphasis, and thank you, Christy. Beaver emphasis areas, and map these. And again, using the tools being generated through this Bonneville Environmental Foundation, it's a beautiful package. And what it does, it is going to move the needle on beaver-based restoration in the state of Oregon. If those others were funded. Those two that did not get funded were very close. I think they were ranked number 9 and 10 with an 8 being our cutoff. I am going to propose that we dip into the remaining drought funding for, I think, to the tune of about $200,000 to fund those 2 projects in addition to the 21 that we've already identified. I think that this is a very important move for us to make. It's consistent with our, as we discussed, our desire to be strategic and to move the needle on conservation in the state. So I'm putting that out there as a What that would do, I think ultimately we would still be able to have two $1 million RFPs the rest of this biennium. Some of that is a little bit like craps betting on the come, and that is that we will generate meaningful income through the licensing program, but I believe we're very close to that. And I also feel we've gone nearly a year without putting any money on the ground. I want to put some money on the ground, and this will allow us to do that. So I'm just throwing that out there. I think we have before us, first of all, a formal approval of the 21 projects that, and we would do that separately to say, yes, we're going to do that. And then I would suggest we entertain a proposal for these other two projects. So any discussion on that?
I guess my concern would be that we'd be skipping projects in a priority using the process that we used, at least not in a major way, but we'd be skipping at least one project that I think is a very good project, particularly in the Northern Basin and Range, and that's the avian monitoring community programs on the Malheur. That's an ongoing project. I know the biologists on the wildlife refuge are using it, and I would sort of hate to see us jump that project. Again, we just don't have enough money to be able to do what we really need to do. Particularly with that project, I'd like to entertain maybe if we could fund it as well. I don't know where that leaves us in terms of dollars, but
Well, Jim,
that would be my concern.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. I had some heartburn about that as I looked at it because clearly we're jumping that one project. And I do think we have the funding for that. We have $1 million in our non-discretion. Oh, that's in the drought. That's a drought.
This is a drought.
That's drought.
Yeah.
So actually, we could review that and decide which bucket we wanted to fund that out of, but probably the drought, because that's when it's in.
Yeah, it's clearly a drought project.
I think we can do that and still safely have two more $1 million RFPs.
We're still skipping a project though.
But they're the same ranking, so.
Yeah, but they're all 10.
Tens, yeah.
They're tens, and I guess that gives me less heartburn than skipping one that has a higher ranking given our process. Yeah.
So.
And
if-
and that, oh my gosh, I can't hold this one in. We've been extremely fortunate in the past. We've had these great projects with the same issue where we just don't like where we draw the lines. And we've been fortunate that we have Jane Hartline on our committee who has a foundation. And she has stepped in the past and funded projects. That is totally her decision and her final choice. But she has come forward to me and has said she's willing to do that yet again, as well as her husband, Mark Greenfield, to not only her contribution here on the committee, she's helping to fund some more of these projects. And I know that some of those tens are, I'm not going to speak for her at all because this is her decision, but some of those tens that are not being funded are under consideration. So there is a possibility that some of those will be funded as well. Jane, do you want to make any comments? I want everybody to know about this, Jane. I'm sorry, but it's just a fantastic thing that you're doing, and we really, really appreciate it. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was scrambling I was looking at the projects on another page, so I had to come back to it. Yeah, we're definitely gonna step in and fund a couple of these. We were gonna wait until after today to make the decision about which ones. So I'm gonna see where these fall.
Well,
So
Jane, that puts everybody on tenter hooks, but thank you so much, and we totally appreciate what you're doing. Liza Jane has her hand up.
Thank you, Jane, so much. One thing about your idea, Carl, that I really like, it reminds me of the focused investment program that OWEB has. And when that was first, when I was first introduced to that concept, I was concerned that only the big projects would get funded. The little guys wouldn't have a chance. But what I've seen over the last 7 years working with that project in OWEB is really big things can happen. And it has a huge impact on, like, maybe sage grouse is a great example of how, you know, with a collaborative kind of regional, even if it's a state effort, like all these, instead of the, I'm thinking redundancy, that's not the right word, when you know, people are doing the same thing and they don't know, look at the salmon issues, you know, they don't know they're all working on one thing, but not together. And so with the beaver projects that you're looking at, I think there could be great strength and impact in bringing those efforts together. If those different projects are willing to work together, we're actually saving money by allowing them to have that impact together. So we don't have maybe a focused, prioritized beaver line item, but we have an opportunity here to really bring people together to work on the same issue, which is pretty big. So I think it's a great idea. I support that wholeheartedly. And it's a way for us to move our line a little bit too.
Yeah.
So
Liza Jane, thanks for that insight that you have from working with OWEB. I appreciate, they've been very successful with that, and you bringing that to this community is very helpful. Thank you.
Carl, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You had suggested expanding the funding for the drought package by about 200,000 to accommodate this, and just back of the napkin math, if we are skipping 53, then we can still have the avian monitoring and community programs in Malheur and the 2 beaver, and it would still be around 200,000. So it should address
Yep.
the concern in my case. Okay. Yeah, then I'm comfortable with that as well.
I just added it up on the paper.
I think so, yes. I think in terms of fairness and sticking to our methodology that we feel as a group is working really well in terms of making sure that we are scoring the projects fairly, that we're trying, and by that, we're also addressing geographic diversity. The aspect of optimization of impact really does have to do with this idea of like finding a problem and figure out how much good we can do and try to advance solutions for that problem. It seems that we've identified one, and there are 3 projects that seem to have a lot of synergy between them. That to me feels like we using the same methodology, and if we are able to also fund that one that we were skipping, I think we're covering all our bases. And if that's within our budget, I feel that is exactly what we need to do, and is not affecting our further RFPs through the biennium. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think I'm really excited about the possibility of just not only putting those dollars on the ground, but just having that focused effort that can really do something that maybe wouldn't have been able to do if not all 3 projects had moved forward.
Thank you, Rachel. Mark?
Yeah, I guess I was just gonna second that and offer a couple other points. I know in the short session that just went down, there was interest from legislators in doing a beaver-related project and funding. So I think it's also timely to be responsive to that and demonstrate that we can do that and potentially align ourselves to be eligible and a recipient of increased interest in that going forward. And then, as everybody else has indicated, I guess I would always lean in favor of granting out more money, because we've had people go through a lot of process, develop these applications, they're ready to go. So I would rather push the money out rather than sit on it. So I would say go for it.
Agree.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments? I think we're getting close. So I think really you have a motion for the 21 projects. Why don't you start? Well, actually, if you put that up, we could either do it as two motions, or you have a second alternative that we could just add the other ones in.
Yeah, the total extent.
Okay, so you want to put that up and someone can pick which one they want to do. Okay. So it would work to use the second one. We added those three projects.
So it'd be 24 projects and 0.264 million. Is that what the number will change, Rita?
I'm just gonna add it real quick.
1.4, no? 1.2,
Maybe, or it's one way.
4, 859 plus 246.
I have a question. Is this really true? Because didn't a lot of the non-drought projects rank higher than the drought projects? And so the 21 top ranked ones aren't really the 21 top ranked ones. I mean, I'm not saying I want to change what we're doing. I'm just saying it may be worded incorrectly. Because some of those projects ranked like 5 and 6 and yet didn't get funded. Am I right about that or not?
But we did those as separate buckets, I think.
We did, but in this, we're lumping them.
So we,
I'm not.
I see what she's saying. I think the intent is there. But I see what she's saying. We could change that to be, you could just enumerate it,
The top however many drought related projects and the top however many
yes,
non-drought projects. And then I
yeah.
think it would be more correct.
Okay.
You mean just change the language to, I hereby move to approve the top ranked projects on both drought and non-drought? So that there's a separation between those? Is that what you're
Or
saying?
she's saying to call out the numbers. So the top 5 of the non-drought and the top 10 of the drought. or
Oh,
whatever
okay, I
that
see,
is.
I see what you mean.
It's not going to change what we're doing. It would just be a little more correct, I think.
Yeah.
Counting on Reva to figure this out.
He's working on calculator.
And it needs to rhyme, please. Just.
Okay, so would it be better if we approved it as top ranking drought projects and top ranking non-drought projects for a total expenditure of $1,253,951?
Okay.
Is that what we're looking to do here?
But we're looking to call out the numbers, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the top 7 of non-drought and top whatever number that we are going by for the drought is what.
Okay, yeah. We can do that. 7 and
We can break while she figures that out, maybe.
top 14.
Let's do the math very quickly.
Top 17. Maybe the top 7 non-drought, top
17.
17
non-drought.
non-drought. Okay.
That's where I land as well.
So just, unfortunate, so just so, but the way these are listed, the 10s are, what we would end up doing, you'd have to move, we can't say the top ones just the way they're listed here, because that includes a separate one from the Oregon Water Resources Department. It's a 10. It's tied with it, so we're not including that one.
So how do we word that then?
I think we may just have to name them.
Oh, you mean the ones that are tied on number 10? I think that's a good idea.
Project
Yeah.
5.
So we could say we are going to fund
The top
to
16.
the top, those ranked to 9
Yeah.
in the drought related. We're gonna fund to up and to including the 9 rank. And in addition, the ODF and W 2024 Beaver Action Plan internship, which is a 10.
6. It'll be a long motion.
Well, this is important to get, we gotta get it right,
So you're
so.
gonna go for it, Jim? I'll go like this.
Oh, man.
Okay, I think I got it. The second one, is that what we're looking to do here? 16 drop projects and the top 7 non-drop projects. In addition, the ODFW Beaver Action Plan.
That feels right to
I
me.
think that works.
Jane?
Yes. Looks good.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'm happy to go.
Great.
I hereby move to approve the top ranked 16 drought projects and the top 7 non-drought projects from the OCRF Spring 2024 Round 7 RFP. And in addition, the ODFW Beaver Action Plan totaling $1,253,951 in expenditure from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund with the addition of.
I would just put a period at the end of Oregon Conservation and Recreation.
You want me to go again? I hereby move to approve the top ranked 16 drought projects and the top 7 non-drought projects with the OCRF, from the OCRF Spring 2024 Round 7 RFP. And in addition to the ODFW Beaver Action Plan totaling $1,253,951 in expenditure from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund.
Good.
Period.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor? Liza, Jane, are you voting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it.
Okay, we got a unanimous vote. Thank you all very much. I feel great about this, but I feel terrible about the other projects we didn't fund. And I'm sorry. We just have to work harder on improving our funding. We're barely scratching the surface of the need that's out there.
Yep.
So, thank you all very much. That was wonderful.
An invitation to reapply.
Hold on, I gotta deal with this.
Those who did. not
Yes,
get
please, don't hesitate to reapply. All right, Ray, now I'm ready for a nap.
That's the drawback of the lowest.
Let's see, it's time for a break. Great, that's perfect. Oh, Reba, how did you do that? It's 2:15.
Lucky.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll be back at 2:30.
Can we mute?
Turn my video off. Okay, there. So you heard all that?
I did, so.
So
I'm
they funded the
assuming,
Valier one.
they what?
They funded the Valier one.
Which is the, oh, they did, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Should we turn sound back on?
We take you out.
What's on? Sound's on. We're getting ready to go. Okay, great. Well, all right, welcome back, everybody. Wonderful. We are now going on to the second half here. We have some great presentations here. We're anxious to hear. The first one, we have Niles with us. You see him on the list?
Maybe we could move to Elena while we.
Yeah, Elena, are you here and ready to? Elena's up there. I'm not sure if she's.
Elena's here, yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am ready. I just need probably a second so that I am able to share the screen because I have prepared some photos. Just a second. Just a second. So share.
Great. So this is the only participants, right? Niles wouldn't be hidden somewhere on. And there's not another list.
I think while Elena is, I'll give him a call. make
Yeah.
sure he's
So yeah, Elena, that's great. If you could proceed, great. We have Elena Lininger here to present from Source One Serenity on the project we funded, Boulder Creek Wilderness Trails and Monitoring. Really looking forward to hearing from you, Elena. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for providing me this opportunity. So can you see my screen?
What we have is blank.
Can you see it now, or maybe it just takes some time?
Nope,
Not yet.
not yet. You've allowed her to share, right?
Elena, if you would like to.
So we have someone saying they can see it,
Oh, maybe it's not.
but for us, we're not, someone elsewhere is able to see it.
Okay.
Hold on a second, Elena, we're still working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's odd. We have some people that can see it and some that can't. And unfortunately, the main screen here is not showing up. So you may, I mean, I think you can just go ahead and
Okay.
let's try that. Let's try that. We hate for you to go through that, all that preparation and not be able to accommodate you.
Yeah.
I wonder why that would work that way.
Yeah, please let me know when I can start.
Did you email that to you?
Elena, did you just send it to me?
No, do you want me to send it to you?
Yeah, email it to Reva, if you have her email handy.
Yes, okay.
We'll see if we can get it up.
Okay, yeah.
You would be, you would be better at it than me. Mauricio's gonna juggle for us until we get.
While we wait, this is the special talents portion of our meeting. I do some like ventriloquism. I can make Trishti's voice with my mouth closed. See that?
Nicely done.
That's so you, Mauricio. Another option is.
Thank you very much.
If Liza Jane is ready, I have her slides ready to share for her notebook.
If Liza Jane wants to go, we could do hers all the way.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Liza Jane, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Why don't you, tell us about your experience with the Northwest Community Forest Forum?
Sure. It is hysterical that my Reva thinks I can function with slides, but Reva, you go. Do you have them up? Can you do that?
Yeah, let me just full screen them just real quick.
Okay, then I'll do this, and that means change the slide. Or I'll just say change the slide.
Yeah, that'll probably be better.
So do you have it, Raymond?
Yep.
Niles is with us.
He's getting that ready, Liza Jane.
There it is.
Ah, there we go.
Hey, all right. Ready?
Ready when you are.
Yes. So I was able to attend this community forest forum because it was hosted here, and they reached out, Sustainable Northwest reached out to Carl to see if OCRF would be interested in participating. And so since it was right here, I got this great opportunity to spend 3 days with these folks and learn some things about this. And I wanted to share a little bit about what I learned. So next slide's better. This, since I thought I was going to be in Salem with you, I wanted to start out with a picture of our ODF&W office in Enterprise. And I'm sure you have a lovely view, but I think this is pretty awesome.
Wow.
So that's their spot. Now, next slide is a picture of Chief Joseph Mountain from our ranch. And I thought maybe you'd like to look at that while I tell you just kind of some of the bones of this forum that I attended. It was sponsored by Sustainable Northwest, Weyerhaeuser Family Foundation, U.S. Forest Capital, U.S. Forest Service, Craft 3, Wallowa Resources, and Wallowa County Community Forest. There was lots of sessions, 2 days, 2.5 days, stories about community forests in Oregon, although most of the people attending were actually from Washington. Another session regarding how regional and national NGOs support community initiatives. The Trust for Public Lands, TNC, and Western Rivers all presented. A panel I found really interesting was talking about balancing hunting, recreation, and public access priorities. And that was presented by Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Oregon Hunters Association, and John Postian from ODF&W. There was another a presentation on tribal engagement in the community forest process. I have a bubble chart picture a little bit later, but the Kalispel Indian tribe presented in their process. The third day was really more about people who receive and people who give money. ODF, the Forest Legacy and Colt presented, Weyerhaeuser, and the Washington Opportunity Fund. Really interesting to me was the people who loan money, and that was presented by Legacy Works Group, and they're nationwide, and their approach, Craft 3, Alder Point Capital, and then the Conservation Fund. And it was really interesting. These are mostly loans that make it possible for community groups to purchase these lands and then do the restoration work, the environmental stewardship on the lands, but really creative and accessible and supportive ways to access capital for people. Next slide. This was on top of the Moraine where we had a tour. I didn't know. I found it interesting. There's already 200,000 acres of community forests in the Pacific Northwest. And what they are, if you're not familiar, a definition I liked was community forests are about local control over and enjoyment of the monetary and non-monetary benefits offered by forest resources. So on the Wallowa-Whitman here in Wallowa County, the National Forest, it has over 50% of our land area in this county, and the annual gross receipts from timber decreased from over $38 million in 1990 to typically less than $1 million. So we've gone from $38 million to $1 million. However, the cost of management and fighting forest fires continues to rise, and our individual ranger districts struggle with inadequate staffing and operating budgets. And most of those forests are losing their natural diversity of structure and species composition and their resilience to disturbance. And it's not just the forest management that's affected, but recreational facilities are declining. In our Northeast Oregon, campsites are closing, trailheads are deteriorating, and in Wallowa County, less than 25% of our trail system is regularly maintained. Another concern is the Pacific Northwest Research Station in Corvallis is projecting that more than 1 million acres of forests in the United States will be converted to developed uses, houses, urban areas, and infrastructure each year, over 1 million acres each year over the next 50 years as our population grows. And in the Pacific Northwest, that growth is forecast to be above this national average. So I'll show you a little bit about our tour. Next slide. Please, yeah. These are some signage that's up at the bottom with all the information and rules that are being developed on how people in the community can access and recreate on this piece of ground. Next slide. This was our takeoff. I wanted to show you. It was all uphill, which was took us a little bit of time, but great hike. A little bit of a blustery spring day, but beautiful. And then that's kind of gives you a sense of the size of the group. Next slide. So we're on top. This is up on top of the moraine, and I believe this moraine is one of the last or largest natural moraines on the continent, where the glaciers came down and carved out this beautiful Wallowa Lake and pushed up this moraine. And so it was a concern of development and owned privately, and the community was able to come together and purchase this, and is now managing it as a community for multiple uses. Next slide. This is Pete Schrader, who joined us. He works with Wallowa Resources, and we, OCRF helped fund the virtual fencing project, if you remember that. And so he was talking about how they were implementing that. It's really interesting project that I think is going to get some legs on it in the industry. I think there's an opportunity. This is just, creative, fun things to think about. But as the cattle get close to this line, they get buzzed and beeped and buzzed and then shocked if they touch it. So they learn that. And I thought, maybe in the future, it would be possible to put the same kind of collar on maybe a wolf pack leader. And so when they got closer and closer to the fence, they could also learn not to cross that. But there's all kinds of uses, and this is kind of a cutting edge, especially on publicly owned ground like this. So We also have a local neighbor who bought 700 of these collars and be using those out on the Zoom wall. So it's kind of fun to be following along with virtual fencing. Next. This is Nils Christofferson. There's Jim Akinson from OHA looking over the lake and just talking about the history of this land and its uses and some of the challenges. Next. There's my bubble chart. Got to have a bubble chart in here, but this was the Kalispel Indians and tribe and how they work together and continue to make this thing move. I love the trail around where meet annually, break bread, and continue to bring in all these different people and groups and meeting their needs and working together. Next. This last slide, another picture of where I live, and just some thoughts about, the whole thing, what I learned, and wanted to say is environmental stewardship is hard work. And I think that old saying of many hands make light work is definitely true. I heard about new ways to manage land and forest by bringing people together that are invested in their place. And they often have the knowledge, the long-term vision and incentive to approach stewardship holistically. I think it's exciting to think about that approach as it builds community first and impacts concentrically outwards. I'm thinking about, possibilities of considering the value of collaborations of place as we move forward in supporting conservation and recreation in Oregon. So I entertain questions. I appreciate the opportunity to attend this and learn more and connect with people that are doing great work on the ground and being really creative in how they do it and looking for ways that we can join them in those efforts. That's what I got.
Liza Jane, great slideshow. And thank you so much for being our representative there. I think it's very important for the committee to be making the contacts you made. I have a couple of observations. One, you mentioned the funding piece, and there's a lot of different funders there. You also mentioned what sounds like some innovative funding solutions with the loans. I'm hearing more and more about innovative ways to fund conservation. It's something we should be looking at maybe in the future. So thank you for that. The other is, Reva, I would love to hear the collars that we funded for, the election, what she was talking about with the cattle, the fence, the invisible fence funding. That would be a great one to hear what their experience was with that, because that could be a game changer if it's implemented on a broad scale. So maybe reach out to them.
I heard them talking about it in the Ojokos as something they're thinking about
We
doing.
we funded what she's referring to. Elijah Jane, didn't we funded that project,
Yeah.
right?
We sure did. Yeah. I think,
Yes.
I think we did. Weber, OCRF, I know the proposal came to us.
Okay, well, if we funded it, then we should get them to come. I'd like to
Yeah,
do that.
it'd still be possible to get them to come and talk about that because we'll be seeing it and it is really interesting.
Well, Elijah Jane, again, I can't think of a better representative for the committee than you to interact with folks there. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Any other questions? Great. So have you got Lena's presentation ready to go?
Yeah, but do we want to move to Niall?
Is not, I don't see Niles up there.
I think he's here.
Oh, okay. Niles, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Yes, I'm ready. Mhm.
Okay. Is that Niall or Elena? I don't see Niles' name up there.
He logged in right when
Is there more up there? But I don't see him there.
But I think Elena has been waiting, so maybe
Yeah.
Niles.
He's right here.
So let's let Elena go because Niles, we're gonna let Elena go first because we kind of got that set up. I apologize. And I apologize, Elena, for having to make you wait again, but I think we have your presentation ready. So why don't we go with Elena and then we'll move on to Niles. Apologies to Niles.
Yeah, no problem at all.
There we go.
Yeah, great.
Yay.
Perfect. Yes, I'm so happy that it worked out. So yes, my name is Elena Alaninga, and I run a grassroots nonprofit Source One Serenity in Roseburg, Douglas County. And so our nonprofit serves veterans. Next slide, please. And our mission statement is to empower veterans to regain their purpose and build their community. So the nonprofit was founded in 2016, and we started it only with outdoor recreational activities such as fly fishing and hiking. And it was a venue for veterans to heal outdoors, connect with the fellow veterans in our rural community, and also to help veterans to integrate them better in this community. So nonetheless, when veterans were already on the trails in the Umpqua National Forest, so were hiking, exploring, and fly fishing in different streams, but they have noticed that those trails needed attention and maintenance. So in 2019, we just started conversations with the Forest Service. And in 2020, we already started collaborating with them, but mostly like we were just focusing on just smaller sections of trails, just like a log out just of bigger trees, including on the North Umpqua Trail. But then in the winter of 2020, we had a bigger conversation with the Forest Service because we wanted to know where exactly they need more, so what trails need more attention and how we could help them in the best way. The next slide, please. So their suggestion was to do a trail work in the Boulder Creek Wilderness. So, and being more specific, Boulder Creek Trail number 1552, which is over 10 miles long. And so there were actually several reasons why Forest Service wanted us to look into this trail. So the next slide, please. So the next slide just will show a little bit more. And I think so you can also show the next slide as well right now. So, there were several reasons why Forest Service wanted us to look into this trail. So first of all, so this area had several wildfires in the past 25 years, including a bigger one in 2008 Rattle Fire. So these photos just show how it looks like in certain areas. So, and that's why those downed trees from that fire would, of course, block a trail. Specifically in the northern section of this trail was particularly difficult. And so it was actually also, there was no safe travel along the whole trail. There was also another reason that exactly because of safety issues is that Douglas County Search and Rescue had different or numerous calls from hikers who were lost or needed help exactly in that area. And so there were also some other issues, including so users or hikers, hunters or backpackers were creating social trails, and which is no-go, especially in the wilderness areas. But these trails were caused by downed trees. So in any case, we started the work on this trail in 2020, so in June. And so just starting it, we could already see the scope of work. So this trail needed really a lot of work. So at the beginning, we were doing everything only on volunteer basis. And just to give you an idea, so we are in a rural community, and so for the trail work, so not everybody is equipped to do trail work, especially in the backcountry, which requires a hike in for several miles and carrying food and tools and so on. And some of this work is almost doesn't make sense to do this within a day because it requires a longer hike in. So in any case, in 2020, in summer, I started already looking into different grant opportunities so that we could increase capacity. And later on, so I saw this grant program from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund, and I wanted to learn more about it. So here I would like to acknowledge so this valuable connection that I have established with your board member, Merritt. And she helped me to understand the grant program because we were absolutely new. We were applying for the first time. And she also helped me to understand the importance of conservation aspect. And by the way, so it became actually really important for us later on, and I will explain it later. So we were bringing in this a conservation element to our recreation project. And we were, of course, really excited. And yeah, we were so happy when we received this grant in 2021. And it really has shown to us that we could have more collaborations and to do more impact in this on this project. So the next slide, please. So here it just shows the list of partners with whom we worked. Some of them I will tell you a little bit more later, but here I, for example, also would like to mention a Phoenix School of Roseburg. It is a school that hosts also Oregon Conservation Youth Corps. And so we actually have collaborated with them on just using their transportation because it was so important, especially for hitches, which were like about 6 or 7 days. The next slide, please. But before I start talking exactly about our involvement with our partners, I also would like to mention, so we did 2 longer hitches over those 2 years. And during these hitches, we were able to provide paid stipend, which is also so important for our community, economically disadvantaged community. And so it could actually cover costs for their food, dehydrated food, and yeah, other and other essentials. So and probably so these photos just like show you how the trail looked like. So what they were telling me that it was like so those trees were like matches along the trail. The next slide, please. So first of all, of course, we worked together with the Forest Service. We worked with them concerning just planning and also learning about wilderness standards. So and on one hitch, so their trail crew has also joined our crew, and that was actually like served as matching funds as well. And they actually really wanted to join our crew so to be able to spend some more time also in wilderness and work together. The next slide, please. We also work together with the local chapter of Oregon Equestrian Trails. So they have brought in food and tools. So because hike-in, so especially after all, so what required a hike-in of more than 7 miles one way. The next slide, please. We also worked with the local club So Glide High School Outdoor Club, when veterans were teaching the youth how to do trail work, and they were actually staying at the place Pine Bench with Ponderosa Pine. And the veterans also said that it was just highlights for them, so to work together with youth and teach them how to do that. The next slide, please. So I especially want to recognize this group, so Siskiyou Mountain Club. So we did work with them last year, so in July. And so they brought in their wilderness core crew, so youth, together with their trail crews. And it was just such a great collaboration to be able to learn from them, because so they have existed in this space for much longer time. And it was really very, very valuable for our veterans and community members. In any case, in July 2023, this is when this trail became passable again. So if you think about it, so this trail is only more than 10 miles, but it took us 3 years just because of complexity and difficult sections of this trail. So it was a really big achievement for us. The next slide, please. So we worked with the monitoring consultants who was able to bring in this conservation aspect of our project, and it became a Streamside Flora. So it is a woman-owned business, solo small business, so with Tracy Pope, and she did amazing work. So she had really great observations by hiking in there, so during different times of the year. And it was especially special when she told us about her findings of milkweed first, and then a few weeks later, so she found caterpillars of monarch butterflies. And it was really interesting for us, so to educate our community, so and the importance of preserving this endangered species of monarch butterflies. The next slide, please. So Tracy Pope also did different observations, and she has prepared such a good monitoring reports. And so she has observed, of course, like different species, vegetation, and of course wildlife. But also like she was able to see some concerns, and it became invasive species. So the next slide, please. So during last year, so in September, so we hosted community-based celebration of National Wilderness Month. This is when different people came. So of course, those who were on the trail, but also some others who wanted to learn more, and including hikers and runners. So Tracy Pope was able to tell us more about invasive species, and to focus on our next steps, especially on preventing that these species are growing. So and she discovered like in certain patches, especially Himalayan blackberry, Scotch broom, and meadow knapweed. And so that's why it became a strategic step for us, so to be aware of in the future that we need to control these invasive species. It was also really good, so that during this event we had Forest Service trail crew, because they have brought some of their tools, and they were educating our community how, for example, just hikers and runners could have just loppers in their backpack and could do already some work when they run or just walk. And so that could, of course, also definitely help to keep blackberries, Scotch broom, and meadow knapweed so low. Yeah, so in any case, it was really important for us to work with the monitoring consultant and host like this community event in Roseburg in the library. The next slide, please. So I talked just about tangible results, which is so important. But at Source One Serenity, we also focus on how this type of work affects people directly. And so this project is such a purpose-driven and so mission-oriented, and which is so important for veterans. I have collected just a few quotes from veterans who were on this trail. And I would like to read, so in any case, some of them. So for example, the first one, it was from a post 9/11 veteran who was actually working on Boulder Creek Wilderness Trail for 3 years. This is what he wrote. Raising my son and being a part of this project are the only two things that have kept me from taking my life over the past 1.5 years. I've contemplated it numerous times, but I couldn't ever admit it until now. And for us at Source One Serenity, it is just so important concerning mental health. And we actually really call it mental health in camouflage or mental health in disguise. And unfortunately, so our community, our county, together with several other counties in the southwestern corner of the state of Oregon, has the highest veteran suicide rates. And why so these purpose-driven projects are so important, I would like to read the next testimonial or a quote from another post 9/11 veteran. Finding meaning in your work is not always easy, especially for veterans, because it is difficult to find anything that compares to the camaraderie and commitment to the greater good that is instilled by the armed forces. So these intangible results are also just so important for us and our community. The next slide, please. I also would like to mention this another incident that affected people's lives directly. So it happened in July 2022 when there were 2 injured hikers. So they needed help from Douglas County Search and Rescue. So first they hiked on Boulder Creek Trail, and then they turned and they were on a decommissioned trail. And unfortunately, so they were really lost and they didn't have enough water with them. So this is how they needed help. Fortunately, so Douglas County Search and Rescue were able to use pack horses easily because this trail, so Boulder Creek Trail, was already cleared. So it was also really good to hear so that we could see such results immediately. The next slide, please. So in any case, we were so grateful to the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund for this opportunity. It has definitely shown impact on our community, on the lives of people, but it has also leveraged some more. So for example, we are continuing our collaboration with all those partners that I have mentioned. So during that time, we have actually strengthened our collaboration. And for example, just want to mention to you, so together with Siskiyou Mountain Club, we will be hosting another event here in Roseburg because they made a documentary about trail work in the wilderness area. And we will be hosting this event for the community here so that people can be aware of trail work and trail work opportunities. So thank you so much.
Elena, thank you for a great presentation. It's very gratifying to hear about your work. I think I really appreciate the partnerships that you formed and how that extended the impact of our funding, and that's very important to us. And I would like to thank Maurette for her input and how you were able to get them to have a naturalist out there for that concept of combining that with conservation. That's exactly what we're all about. So thank you.
Yeah,
Elena, this is Maurette. I'm just really impressed with what you were able to do from your initial idea. I just gave you a couple of thoughts and you ran with it so fast and so big. that I'm still kind of in awe of what you pulled together. So congratulations.
Yeah, yes, so thank you so much. But you know, so a Boulder Creek Wilderness, it became just almost like a sacred place for us.
Well, that's what we're hoping to achieve. So Elena, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Anyone else have any other questions? Well, thank you very much and good luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. All right. So now we can move on. I'm sorry, Niles, about the delay, but I think you have Niles's presentation.
Yeah.
So Niles, if you're ready, we can go ahead once Reva gets that up on the screen.
I am ready. Reva, am I able to share that on my end, or
Sure, yeah.
I can share it on my end? Okay.
Didn't we try
Please
that?
share. Let's see if this something works.
Well, let's see what happens with his.
We'll try it, work with Elena, maybe.
But I have yours up and ready in case it doesn't show.
Okay. Okay. Let's see.
It seems like the acoustics of this whole thing are really good. Oh, great.
Nice.
How's
Nice,
that
we
look?
got it. Got it.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me today, and hearing the stories is definitely continues to inspire me to continue to do this work and create space for youth to go out and reconnect with nature. So thank you again. My name is Niles Mitash, and I'm the founder and director of Back to Youth. We are located in Eugene, Oregon, and represent the whole of Lane County, all the students in the Lane County. Our mission is focused on health, wellness, and resiliency by actively engaging youth 11 to 18 with Mother Nature. And we get youth from all around Lane County, and we take them out to connect with nature through various outdoor activities and healing modalities, such as hiking, biking, fishing, grounding, archery, rock climbing, breath work, kayaking. So a typical day for us starts off as a morning gratitude circle. So in the morning, we'll spend about 30 minutes sharing gratitude, what we're thankful for. And then we also incorporate in our lesson plans for the day. So those can include a breath work, a meditation, or any other self-empowering activities that we do. And then we'll go off for our activities of the day. Throughout the day, we'll incorporate in the morning lesson plan with the activity of the day. So it's more of a cohesive activity. Our mission is fulfilled by reconnecting youth through various outdoor activity and mindfulness practices, while engaging marginalized BIPOC and at-risk youth in rural areas. So a big one of our major goals for this year was to have outreach to the rural areas, and a huge part of the ORCF grant helped us accomplish that. So that was a huge accomplishment for us as far as providing transportation and gear for the kids. We're also looking forward to providing after school and weekend activities to those rural schools as well. Another huge part of the ORC funds allowed us to collaborate with other community partners, such as Whole Earth Nature School in Eugene, where the campers were able to go out and connect to nature and do a lot of cool activities, such as intuition training, grounding, and learning about how to connect to the elements. Whole Earth Nature School has been around Lane County for a while now, and they've become one of our biggest collaborators. And they share the same mission as we do as well. So that's been a great collaboration. Here are some pictures of some of our conservation work that we've done. Again, some of the ORCF money allowed us to get the kids out and participate in conservation projects. So down on the left hand, you see some kids, a group of kids releasing fish into the Willamette River. This was a project that we did up at Mount Pisgah Arboretum, which is also one of our partners. And we met with another group called Central Latino, and we collaborated to learn about riparian management and also the fish habitats. The middle slide here is another group of kids on another day where we went out and cleared ivy off the trees. Taught the youth about the importance of clearing the ivy and how that it actually can kill the trees from lack of sunlight. It could weigh down the branches, and the kids actually really enjoyed this. And so we're really looking forward to bringing this back again this year. The slide to the right side is another day where the kids were able to go out and clean up trash. It was actually a really amazing day. The kids got to experience clean up trash in a more holistic way as they got a lot of good feedback from the community that was passing by. And I really feel like that reinforced positive behavior to clean up, the importance of cleaning up your environment that you live in, but also you can get feedback from these activities that most kids aren't participating in, unfortunately. So that was really fun. This slide shows, this is one of probably the favorite camp activities we have with the kids. This day was a group of 20 kids where we collaborated with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we take the kids over to the Junction City Ponds for a fishing and archery day. And the ORCF grant offered the youth an opportunity to interact with the staff and the volunteers and engage them with fishing and hunting education. I think this will be our third year, so we've been collaborating with Amanda Boyles, who's the angler education coordinator, and then Laura Baker, who is the hunter education coordinator, along with many other volunteers that are always excited to show up and show the kids the basic essentials. ODFW provides all the gear for 20 youth, and this includes the fishing poles, worms, hooks, bobbers, and then of course, the time spent to interact with the kids. So each session, there was about 5 different sessions, so about 45 minutes. So that they went over things like safety measures, aquatic education, anatomy, knot tying, fishing, and archery. And then the kids would rotate in groups of 10. The whole session was from about 10 to 3, so about 5 hours. And we're really looking forward to continuing that with ODFW, and the ORCF funds also helped us make that happen. Demographics for our camps, we were able to surpass the original proposal, which was 40 kids with the ORCF grant money, and we were able to serve 57 youth with the funds, 37 males, 20 females, and 35 identified as Black, 16 as white, 4 as Hispanic, and 2 as Pacific Islander. And we're really hopeful for this year that we'll increase that as we get more awareness out. And so that was another big success for us. Here's a picture of a day where we were collaborating with Whole Earth Nature School again. And this day focused on team building, leadership, and I believe we were playing a game where we use bandanas to tie the legs together, and the kids really enjoyed this. Another big hit for us, and you can see the smiles on their face, so that always says a lot. Some of the challenges we felt like we faced with the funding, and this is specifically for this year, we felt the timing for us, since we're seasonal, we do 4 seasonal camps each year. We felt the timing of opening for this grant was a little late for us, but we're optimistic, and as we expand, to create more bandwidth for that grant planning. Some other challenges we ran into were response times to emails. It made it hard for us to plan. There was some turnover with the ODFW staff. So that also was another kind of hiccup. So we'll just have to reevaluate and reach out sooner in the planning phase. And again, for us as being a small nonprofit, we felt that not having a developmental staff, we felt like this round was a little challenging for the application. But again, we'll continue to revisit that and hopefully expand in that area. And then also with the change in staff, Reva has become a huge help with us and helping us navigate. And she's been very knowledgeable and very helpful. So thank you, Reva.
No.
Yeah, and then this gratitude. In the last year, we've seen some tremendous growth in our program and have been fortunate to have community partners like you on our side each step of the way. And we hope you will continue to support us in our journey in the lives of the youth in Lane County. And I just wanted to thank you personally and also the Back to You staff for believing in our vision. And it means the world to the youth we serve in the community. So thank you. And questions?
Niles, that was a great presentation and very much appreciate the previous slide where you gave us some suggestions. We'll take that very seriously. We really appreciate your comments in that regard, and congratulations on what looks like a really wonderful program. And hopefully that relationship with ODF and W will continue, and anything we can do to help facilitate that partnership, please let us know. So thank you for using our funding in a really constructive way, and congratulations on what looks like a wonderful program. Liza Jane, you have your hand up?
I do, Niles. I missed, how long have you had this program? How long have you been at this?
Yes, we're going into our 4th year.
All right. Do
Yes.
you think the kids that are participating, do you hear them talking about maybe working in fields out on the land or in restoration? Does it inspire that kind of aha on an opportunity for them?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of our main purposes, is to get the youth as much exposure as possible and let them know that there's other opportunities out there, other than just what's fed to us through the mainstream, of course. We also feel like being in nature, it's already a plus, and as you can move that into a career, that's even better.
Yeah.
So we do get feedback from the kids. Definitely a lot of the feedback is, we miss being outdoors. And we also look forward to being able to provide them with more referrals or activities, job opportunities. So that's one big thing that Back to Youth specifically would like to be, have more access to opportunities in those fields, in the conservation field. So if there's any way that we can communicate as far as those opportunities, that would be great. We could share that with the kids.
Good, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to say thank you again for your support. This has been a tremendous opportunity for myself and for the youth, and I feel like as we continue to create spaces for them to reconnect, whether it's just outside doing activities or through work, it's a win-win. So, thank you.
Niles, really important work. Thank you very much. We appreciate you putting that together.
Thank you. I appreciate you all.
Thank you very much. All right, great. Okay, well, that was 2 great stories. That's wonderful to hear the outcomes of the money we're putting out there. It really is gratifying to see that. Okay, so that brings us, we kind of skipped public comment a little bit, but we're close enough on that. Is there anybody out there who has anybody in the public that would like to make any comments? Have you heard anything, Reva?
I haven't, but I'm looking in the chat right now to see if anyone wanted to make a public comment. Not seeing anything.
Okay. Okay, well, great. That brings us then to another important topic for us to discuss, really, really important. And that is OCRF future funding. I think we've had an opportunity to see what our funding can do on the ground. We're all had that same sense that we just didn't have enough money to cover the projects that needed to get done. So we have to really think hard about solidifying our economic viability. The current process has been frustrating to all of us. You know, we're kind of getting in a pop, and then maybe we're going to get in a pop, maybe we're not. The latest is we were in another pop or whatever. I'm not even sure what pop stands for, but it's a way to
Policy
add.
option package.
What is it?
Policy option package.
Policy option package. In ODF and W's budget, it was for $1 million, which is better than nothing, but clearly not to the level we need. Well, it turns out because of some issues with the funding that we are not going to get that. We're not even going to get that $1 million. That leaves still the next legislative session is coming. There's, again, for a little bit of context, we do have $5 million are coming our way for the migration. There are some existing or soon to be existing bills that earmark various strategic efforts, some of them associated with beaver mitigation. So there's other ways to funnel funding through us. But really, as we saw, it's really nice to have those flexible funds, the funds that don't have an earmark that we can employ in a way that is most strategic or where we can get the most bang for the buck. So there's a lot of that. I don't have a specific, I just think it's important for us to be thinking about it and talking about it. There is some talk about alternative funding mechanisms. As you know, we were born out of that process where they looked at ways to help fund ODF and W's mission outside of the traditional manner. And there was some thought that maybe it's important to keep these historical contexts, that if the Restoring America's Wildlife Act became a reality, that funding might come through a committee like this. Well, that right now does not appear to be on the horizon. So there's other possibilities, and I just want people to be thinking about it. And I was going to ask Sristi if she's able to speak to this a little bit, because she's intimately involved with the ongoing legislative process, and I'd like to hear what she had to say.
Thank you, Carl. I think you kind of covered the big picture here, which is that we are still very much dependent biennium to biennium to get funding from the legislature for the unrestricted dollars that we have, which, as Carl mentioned, is where most of the flexibility lies, because the restricted grants come with their sideboards. There are multiple conversations happening, more along the lines of restricted funds that might be coming to OCRF in the next biennium. As Carl mentioned, that's primarily around beaver-related mitigation for private landowners. That was an attempt in the short session, and that bill is likely coming back again in the long session. It was a 1.5 million ask. I don't know if it's going to stay exactly the same amount, but that's what it was the last session. But it's definitely coming back. And then because we know OCRF is likely to not get funding through the agency budget, We're looking at legislative fix for that. So that means some legislator would have to drop a bill asking for funding for OCRF that's unrestricted. Representative Helm in the past has been the biggest advocate for OCRF, and he continues to be. So he is interested in supporting us again in the coming biennium. More work to come on that front. But again, that just highlights this sort of problem we are in every biennium, trying to secure funding specifically for OCRF. So with that, as Carl mentioned, the conversation on alternate funding is gaining momentum again. The one that led to the genesis of OCRF is coming back, but more broader for Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and funding the Oregon Conservation Strategy and the various programs under it. And that, depending on general fund dollars, is very risky and uncertain. So we're looking for a dedicated state funding source for it. Might take a couple of biennium to figure that out, but it is definitely moving their stakeholder interest in it. And if that does go through, OCRF will definitely be a recipient of that. But that just means a lot of advocacy at the legislature, and that just means a lot of stakeholder support for such an initiative so that we can continue to do the work that OCRF is doing. So that's where opportunities are for the biennium ahead. One unrestricted and one restricted. More might pop up. It's still pretty early. We have 6 more months to go. I'll be happy to keep everyone posted on what I hear beyond.
Tristy's just doing incredible work out there and has great connections and is so well respected that we are incredibly fortunate to have her as part of our face to the legislator. And so thank you, Tristy, for that.
Of course.
Mark usually has been thinking about this quite a bit and has maybe some thoughts to add.
Well, I was just gonna ask you, Saristi, maybe if you know more about it, but the state has a $700 million settlement with Monsanto, and that those funds have been deposited at OWEB.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is there's some conversation about how those will be managed, divided up. And I just wondered if you have any insight into that.
That's a good reminder. What Mark is referring to is Oregon settled with Monsanto, the Attorney General settled with Monsanto for the presence of PCBs in our environment, including our fish and wildlife. And so the way the settlement works is that it's been put in essentially an endowment fund, if you will, for multiple decades. I believe it's for 50 years. And the state plans to use the interest on that endowment for state agencies to fund programs that would have direct relationship with impacts of PCBs. So fish and wildlife definitely falls front and center in that category. ODF&W has been identified as one of the agencies eligible for receiving those Monsanto funds. I think the conservative estimate is that the profits or the interest will generate close to 70 million per biennium, if not more. And so, but that can be divvied up amongst the agencies in different ways. So it is a very significant pot of money. The way the bill structured the dispensing of these funds is that they're going to have a council. I believe they call it something Restoration Council. And different agencies will be represented there, ODF&W being one of them. And of the pot of money, 50% is earmarked for state agencies, 25% for EJ impacted communities, and 25% for tribal governments. So of the 50%, ODF&W is definitely eligible. Most of the OCS related work would be eligible for that. And so my understanding is that it's still very much in its infancy stage. And once the council is established, they're going to develop sort of their priorities, if you will. And within that, agencies are eligible to apply, and they can be multi-year. So it doesn't have to be every biennium. It can be a promise of 8 years or 10 years, even though the money will come every 2 years. So there is opportunity for long-term investments into that. And so that's another bucket that ODFNW I know plans and Debbie plans to explore for funding sources. I don't know if it's OCRF, even if it is, I think it'll have to be a package of something bigger ask, because going after a pot of money that's that substantial would probably have to be like funding an entire program at ODFNW with staff and OCRF or something along those lines. But I don't think those have been worked out yet for ODFNW.
Any sense when that council will get put together? Is that?
My understanding is that they will try their best, and this is from my conversation with the governor's office, is that they will have them up and running in at least 1 year.
Any other questions or comments about that, the funding subject? Any ideas? Anybody got anything else to put in there? I think the best thing we can all do is what we just did today, is just keep up the incredible work that this committee's done. It's a great story. We can take this to, I mean, again, this package of projects, we can take this to the legislature and show people what we can do and what we've done. It's really important that, as you all know, we've embarked on this communication strategy, working with Oregon Wildlife Foundation. I think that's another avenue to explore. Jane Hartline has some great ideas. I mean, what Jane is doing with their foundation and helping to fund us, there may be other opportunities with other foundations where we have this great process that we're identifying fantastic projects. And it's possible that other foundations might want to piggyback on that. And I see that Liza Jane has her hand up.
Thank you, Carl. I was thinking about what you said, initially, that 150,000 comes from fishing and hunting licenses. And it would be, I don't have an idea really, but it would be great if we could brainstorm or soak on possibilities for other people that are recreating and enjoying our wildlands to contribute easily. I don't know if that exists or not, but maybe in our communication strategy, we can develop a way for people who aren't necessarily hunting or fishing, but could contribute to us.
Liza
Right.
Jane, unfortunately, OCRF was that strategy. I was on meetings back in the 80s where they were trying to come up with funding for conservation strategy and non-game wildlife, and they explored ad nauseum all kinds of ways, and what they came up with was OCRF. And now that's been sort of gutted, so here we're kind of back at square one.
Well, I do think what Liza Jane said has a lot of merit, and that is this license thing was sort of like came out of the blue. Somehow somebody had the idea of doing that, and it worked incredibly well. Well, we have already explored possibilities of going to the Marine Board, where the people that come in and have to license their boat. And there might be a possibility to put a checkbox in there for the OCRF. The Parks Department, when you go and make a reservation for a campground, we actually had a conversation, if you all remember, with someone from a board member from the Parks Department about the possibility of pursuing that. So I think we just have to revisit that again, because that could, as you tumbled onto, Liza Jane, it could be a pretty significant amount of money that would come through that. So that's definitely something for us to keep in mind. And maybe Reva, if you put that on the big to-do list, we have is kind of reach back out and talk to Debbie. I think many of you are aware that there's been a change of leadership in the department, and Kurt, who's been really a great friend of ours, has retired. And I think in many ways, Kurt's greatest contribution to us was he just let us do what we wanted. He was great in that way and very much appreciated. But now Debbie has, I think, going to be a much more active, take a much more active role. And she's indicated to me and to others that this is one of her top priorities, is to get this type of funding in place. And she feels that the time is right for this legislative session to make something happen. And I think she feels she has the governor's office support. And so we need to be thinking about a big push this year. And again, many ways, the best thing we can do is just keep doing what we've been doing and just do a good job.
Carl, what about focusing on mitigation for big high dollar projects in Oregon, like, power line construction or natural gas pipelines, or, DEQ gets involved with mitigating,
Yeah.
inevitable environmental impacts. And those mitigation things can often be huge dollar amounts. And it would seem to me that I don't know who would do this. I mean, who would focus and who would relate to the planning or authority associated with permitting these projects, but there's some big ones. And I mean, the dollar amounts that we're talking about are so low compared with some of the mitigation that I've seen
Yeah.
with big projects.
Yeah.
And we're doing them all the time.
And many times a waste of money.
Right, well, I agree, but I think the point is,
Yeah.
if we were to have someone at the table, and I don't know how that would work.
Well, maybe that person would be Debbie. I mean,
Yes.
I think Debbie has that desire.
Uh-huh.
Is something to bring up.
I mean, I just, my hunters and fisher folks always complain about tags and everything costing more and more and more. I mean, it costs $8 just to even fly for a tag anymore. It used to be $2. And they're almost tapped out, I feel like. But I think but there's some big money floating around the Northwest for projects that are coming up where mitigating the impacts of those, this would be a really good way to do it. I mean, when you look at wetlands mitigation, some of those projects are very costly and have very little, quite frankly, environmental benefits. But the stuff that we're doing here, I think, is notable, and it's spread around, and you couldn't ask for a better organization to sort of oversee and make sure that that money goes to places that are actually using it productively. But I don't know how that would work. I really.
So you make me think of something, Jim, which I feel like the reason why we continue to come up empty with some ideas as to how we can get more funding for us is that we still are limited with this sort of like invisible ecosystem. We still are somewhat in the world of ODFW. But one thing that I feel, and some of the projects that we heard about today, is that the real scope of what the OCRF does goes beyond what all this, the traditional conservation and recreation realms are. So here's what I'm talking about. Outside of this OCRF, in some of the other worlds that I'm involved in, an important concept that has come about is this idea of nature RX. And it's like, what are the direct benefits of having nature connectivity to overall wellness, mental health, physical health? That opens up a whole other sector of influence that maybe through Debbie, in maybe some intergovernmental conversation, she could introduce, for instance, to the Department of Education, the Department of Health. These are what we are doing has collateral benefits that could really bring awareness to like, hey, we are taking kids out from rural communities, underrepresented communities, marginalized communities, introducing them to this concept. They are getting a health benefit, and we're expanding the potential for careers in conservation education is involved. So there, I think if we continue to look at this exclusively from the sphere of influence of conservation and environmentalism, where everybody's already strapped for cash, everybody's trying to find their own funding, but we're doing so much more. And I feel that this is not limited to ODFW's universe. So maybe that is, and I'm hoping that as we develop our communication strategy, we're not just saying like, well, this is a great idea. It's like, look at the stuff that we've been doing. And look at so much more than just, monitoring, building, working towards habitat restoration. There is so much more, so many other human dimensions that are involved in this. We've been talking just about this, that are affected by this, that we could channel dollars that are part of non-traditional environmental funding. Like, yeah, so for instance, if there is a huge electrical infrastructure project, these folks, we know, have to have some stake on what they do for their communities. This is one of the things that they could do for their communities. And maybe they could use our help in trying to redirect some of that funding for the benefit of that particular project, but also in intersectional benefits with what the Oregon Conservation Strategy has to do. So maybe worth a conversation.
That's definitely worth it. Tim Grasses, are you still with us? I hope so.
Yes, I am, sir. Yes.
Did you hear all that?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard all that.
I think that's very relevant in what we're trying to do in our communication project and different ideas that maybe even public-private partnerships. I think Mauricio really, as usual, came up with a really brilliant idea and something we should explore. I just wanted to make sure you heard all that. So, right.
And I'll be in conversation as we move to this.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for that.
Thank you,
It
Mauricio.
looks like Liza Jane has her hand up, but then we also have one more speaker.
Yes.
Okay, Liza Jane.
Carolyn.
Okay, I'll just go quick. Thank you, Reva. Mauricio, you always say what I'm thinking so well. I really appreciate it. And Jane, yes, that is in the beginning where we were at and where it feels now. And yet we've done so much. And I think if we could get a sticker, if we could make sure every place we touch has OCRF, then the general public will start to say they'll have a great time somewhere and go, oh, that was funded by these folks. I want to support that beyond hunting and fishing. And it'll be in our communications, and we're working on that. But I think we just have to get it out in front of people all the time so they become aware that that's a place that they can donate. So, but thank you, Mauricio.
Thank you, Liza Jane. I agree with that. Okay, well, Reva's right, and this is another important topic. We have Carolyn here who's going to talk to us about the Oregon Conservation Strategy revisions, which is a pretty big deal in many ways. Carolyn, sorry about a little bit of delay, but we appreciate you coming to give us a heads up.
Yeah, thanks. I'm thankful for Reva for asking me to come and give this presentation today. So yeah, I'm Carolyn Eckrich. I'm the Oregon Conservation Strategy Revision Coordinator at ODFW. And so today I just wanted to give you some background on the conservation strategy, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Tools and resources that we have that are available to help guide conservation, the 10-year revision process, and opportunities to contribute to the revision. So the conservation strategy, which is our State Wildlife Action Plan, or SWAP, is an overarching state strategy for conserving fish and wildlife. And its purpose is to help people make decisions more strategically about how they can invest their time and resources in fish and wildlife conservation. The strategy emphasizes proactively conserving declining species and habitats to reduce the possibility of future federal and state listings. And it is not a regulatory document, but it instead presents these issues along with opportunities and recommended voluntary actions to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of conservation in Oregon. So the strategy is not a management plan for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. It is instead a broad strategy that's for all Oregonians and offers potential roles and opportunities for citizens, private landowners, organizations, and agencies alike. Our aim is to bring together the best available information and offer recommended voluntary actions for all Oregonians to define their conservation role. And this allows everyone to concentrate our efforts on those priorities that we identify in the conservation strategy. We use with organizations such as it can be used to focus conservation actions, provide information. That's a big use that we see. Folks refer to the strategy for just basic information sometimes on a lot of the issues we present, and to improve coordination between our partners. And the strategy prioritizes these conservation needs in Oregon in order to concentrate our efforts and make all of our efforts more effective. So now that you know a bit about the goals of the conservation strategy and how it works, I wanted to discuss some opportunities to use the strategy to plan, focus research, provide guidance for land managers, and help prioritize conservation actions. And also, these are all areas where we have opportunities to revise and incorporate new information and change things if they aren't working well, or improve things along the way. So we have several tools that help address conservation needs. Throughout the OCS, you find resources to prioritize and guide conservation. As you click through our chapters and sections, you see recommended conservation actions and priorities everywhere. For example, every one of our key conservation issues, or KCIs, identifies goals and actions to address those threats to our species and habitats. Every strategy species identifies conservation actions to benefit the species, as well as areas where information is needed to guide research efforts. Our data gap species list helps to identify species that don't have enough information to determine if they are at risk and if they should be listed as a strategy species. And so this list helps us to highlight areas where even just basic research is needed. ODFW maintains a top 5 list of wildlife priorities by ecoregion, with every ecoregion except for the nearshore, identifying species there. And then we use that to direct and inform species conservation efforts specific to our agency. And we provide that, though, because we think it could also be useful for external organizations that have similar wildlife priorities, or those who are looking to partner with ODFW. Our conservation opportunity areas identify prioritized areas where broad fish and wildlife conservation goals would best be met, and help to prioritize on-the-ground conservation actions statewide. Our COA profiles identify recommended conservation actions to prioritize when planning projects in those areas, and also suggest potential partners to encourage collaboration. Our priority wildlife connectivity areas, or PWCAs, are an interconnected network that represents the parts of the landscape with the highest overall value for facilitating wildlife movement in Oregon. They can be used to identify priorities for restoration, mitigation, and protection. And we also have Compass, which is our online data mapping and planning tool. Compass is integrated with the OCS website so that when mapping layers are available, there's a little map pin in the corner of the screen that will allow you to view an interactive map and then open the layer in Compass and interact with it there. Compass is a great way to view our spatial representations of OCS components when they're available. And it also offers a tool that allows users to designate a planning area and generate a strategy report that identifies the species and habitats documented and models within it. So we are proud to offer all of these tools and resources in the OCS, and of how they can enhance our ability to communicate our conservation goals with our partners in the public. We are also excited because with the strategy revision, as I mentioned, we have the opportunity to make sure that these tools remain relevant for the next decade of conservation. So a little bit of background on the revision. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service requires every U.S. state and territory that receives state wildlife grants to have a state wildlife action plan, and ours is the Oregon Conservation Strategy. And we also are required to update that effort at least every 10 years in order to continue to receive that grant money. Our Wildlife Division Conservation Program is entirely funded through these state wildlife grants. We also use the competitive state wildlife grant program to fund projects on the ground, as well as develop tools and resources that support conservation efforts. So the revision of the Oregon Conservation Strategy is due in October of 2025, and we are right in the middle of that process. As we think about the revision process, there are 8 required elements that are mandated by Congress that have to be addressed in all state wildlife action plans. These elements provide a flexible framework to incorporate new information and changing circumstances into the plans while providing nationwide consistency. So if you are familiar with the OCS, you'll see how the strategy reflects these 8 elements. It's also one of the many reasons why we must do this revision so that we can lay out how our plan meets these 8 elements in order to solidify our access to those state wildlife grant funds. And additionally, because of this framework, any changes to these components of the conservation strategy at any time need to be approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is why we are taking advantage of the opportunity to review and revise everything during this process. I want to highlight that 2 of the required elements are partner involvement and public involvement. To address these elements, we are coordinating with a huge focus on our partners in the public. And so we want to stress that this is a product for all Oregonians. Although ODFW leads this process, all of our partners in constituents and the public inform the revision. This is helping us to create buy-in and a sense of ownership, which in turn leads to increased implementation. We also want to highlight that there's internal collaboration ongoing in ODFW, and that while the conservation program is within Wildlife Division and we lead the process, the strategy is a product of all divisions and programs. And we are working collaboratively with advisors from Fish and Habitat Divisions and the Marine Resources Program, with representatives from each that take responsibility for reviewing and revising pertinent chapters, and just emphasizing that we want all staff to have a role in all of these different divisions within the state to be represented. So we have several goals for our 2026 strategy revision. First, we want to incorporate new science, data, tools, and resources because a lot has changed over the past 10 years. We want to make sure that we are incorporating that new information as well as fulfilling our commitments that in other state plans to review and update this information. We are anticipating robust engagement with diverse interested parties, and we are beginning this process now. We just completed an external partner survey, and we are looking forward to working with our partners to drive what resources we develop to make sure that the OCS is a tool that meets the needs of all of our partners. We are looking to incorporate climate change throughout all of the components. Climate change is a major influence on our species and habitats. It's been identified as a major threat that our staff perceives for all of our species and habitats, and we'll be exploring ways to incorporate this more fully into our strategy revision. And one of the ways we're doing that is by working with our partners in the Northwest Climate Adaptation Science Center. We also want to update our available resources and tools, which I highlighted earlier. By updating those tools, we ensure that we can all execute projects that directly benefit all of Oregon's wildlife and habitats. And we'll also be updating the Oregon Conservation Strategy website and Compass. This allows our web platforms to incorporate new technologies and increase functionality. And we want to make the classifications of and decisions around our strategy species more transparent. We have had some difficulties communicating the purpose of our species lists and why some species are listed while some others may not be. And because of differences in how our divisions approach listing species, we'll be focusing on clearly articulating which are species that are considered because of their imperilment and which species are in need of management attention. So a brief overview of some of the key targets that we have for the strategy revision. The process was initiated last year in July. Throughout all of this year, we'll be working on reviewing and revising the strategy species and habitats and our other chapters in order to hit the target of spring of 2025 to have updated chapters available to begin a large public and partner review. We'll then incorporate that review and have a final draft that we'll be presenting to our commission looking for an endorsement sometime in the summer of 2025. As I mentioned, we have a deadline of October 1st of 2025 to turn that into the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then following submission, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will develop a technical review team that will approve the revision in 2026. So I gave you a pretty quick overview of everything in the strategy and the revision process, what we are hoping to accomplish and how the OCS is used. I also am providing here a revision email address that goes to me, and I send those emails out to appropriate team members to answer any questions you might have. Please let us know if you have questions or comments. But I'm also interested to hear from you, the advisory committee, and other people at this OCRF meeting for any suggestions of areas to focus on during the revision or answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Carolyn. Does anyone have any questions? Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn, for the update. That was really helpful. And I'm thinking out loud, so it may not come out very well formed, but kind of going back to Jane's earlier comment that, you know, OCRF was formed in some ways to help implement the Oregon Conservation Strategy. I guess where I'm going is, what opportunity is there in the Oregon Conservation Strategy to call out OCRF as one of the key strategies for implementing the OCS as it goes forward? Because it seems like it'd be sort of a natural partnership with the plan to identify one of the departments or one of the state's programs, if you will, to help advance everything that will be in the OCS.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We do have several areas within the plan where we identify key partners and guides folks in ways that will help with implementation or finding projects and things like that. And I think mentioning the OCRF, there's a lot of places we can do that. Another strength of our SWAP, the Oregon Conservation Strategy, is that it exists on this website. And because of that, it's really nice for us to be able to just put links to other organizations and funding opportunities and things like that. And so I think that there will definitely be a way for us to add links to the OCRF web pages. We could also do a strategy spotlight or something like that to highlight some of that work. I think something we'd like to do in the future, which will probably not happen for this round of revisions, but will sometime as we move down the road, is we'd also like to incorporate some project tracking ability or reporting in our website. And so it'd be great to partner with you all to sort of be able to list projects that you have funded that go directly link with the OCS.
It's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline, I do have a comment just in general. I've read the current conservation strategy and it's a great document, but to me, and I'm a bit like a broken record about this, but I'll just go ahead. There's like beavers are not considered, they're not endangered. There's plenty of them for the most part. So they're not really listed as important, and there's very little reference in the whole conservation strategy to beavers. I've had this conversation with other folks working on the revision, and I think many of the species, many of the issues you're trying to address in the Oregon Conservation Strategy can be addressed with beaver habitat, whether it's amphibians or fish or reptiles or even riparian birds. I mean, there's just a huge impact that beavers can have on the landscape. And it's not really articulated in the current conservation strategy. And I think it's worth trying to, maybe you could talk with Adrian and how the current ODF&W's Beaver Action Plan and the OCS, where they merge and how that can be a partnership or at least pointing out the importance of beavers in the landscape. I think that's one omission that's in the current conservation strategy.
Yeah, I appreciate that point. It's definitely something we have heard from several of our partners and staff members as we have gone through the survey process. And, you know, it highlights one of the difficulties that we have with the revision and the framework that we work within with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is that we, you know, can't just make those updates. 10 years ago, we weren't thinking about beavers and thinking about incorporating all of this stuff in the way that we are today. And so this is our opportunity to make some of those changes. And we are working with Adrian, and we have our wildlife team leaders are working with Adrian, and our habitat team leaders are working with Adrian. And we are definitely thinking about that a lot as we move through the process.
Well, thank you, Carolyn. All right, well, any other questions? Thank you so much for putting that together and keeping us up to date. It's really important. This, and Mark's suggestion is a really good one. It could be helpful to us and you. So we should maybe revisit that ways to make that most effective. So we should maybe have a further conversation about it.
Great. Yeah, happy to do that. And like I said, the OCS.revision at odfw.oregon.gov if you have any other questions or comments after this meeting. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn.
All right. Well, very good. We're doing pretty good. We've got a lot done today. So we're at the wrap up point. We did a lot, and it's been really, really interesting doing this live, and it's been surprisingly effective as a hybrid. I mean, I think Jane and Liza Jane have really been able to participate in better ways than I thought, and the audio and all of that has been really good. So Tiffany, thank you so much for
Thank you, Tiffany.
for making it happen, and we really appreciate how well this went. And you're in the background making it all work, and we really appreciate that. So thank you. I don't have a whole lot more to say other than I'm very proud again to just be part of this. And even what we did today, man, it's great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks for everything you all have done, and the inputs that you have are really valued and really have added to what we are. Reva, wonderful job on this whole process. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, no problem.
Ready? I thought you were gonna wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Go, it's all yours, man. Oh, come on. All right. All right. Well, that's good. I think we can call the meeting adjourned. Do you want to touch on what's happening after this?
Yeah, I can. Probably after we.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Meeting adjourned.
Is Ben gonna join us on the field trip? Oh, you're in Southern Oregon.
All right. Well, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Try and have fun without me.